Hey folks, this is Captain Jones here to talk to you about what the heck you're looking at right here. This is might be a totally different course for you than any you've taken previously. And what I'd like to do is just kind of describe to you my rationale, why this is set up the way it is, and what you can expect to find on the course website here, and what you can expect out of the course as a whole. Um, the By way of a real quick, hopefully quick backstory. Uh, the motivation for me to do something like this started, several months, maybe a year ago, where in a sort of a traditional college classroom, I felt number one that the grading scheme was just all out of whack. The fact that students sort of got to submit a homework once or submit an exam once and that was it was crazy to me. That would be their only shot at sort of receiving feedback, formalized feedback from the instructor. And it put me in a really, I felt a terrible position where, I had to assign partial credit because, this student had one shot at answering a question correctly. And I never felt satisfied with the way I was able to do that because it was never clear to me, whether a student's answer, if it was wrong, was it wrong because they misread the question, or was it wrong because they, were copying an answer and they had no idea what they were doing. And so I sort of asked myself, well, is there a better way? I stumbled across this term called mastery-based grading, which kind of emphasizes this idea of letting students attempt problems multiple times, giving them feedback until they get a question right. And I was really taken by that idea. Um, but it seemed to me that to really kind of do something like that, very quickly you'd find the whole class start to differentiate on the lessons, right? Some folks would kind of get stuck on lesson 6, and the rest of the class would move forward, and then part of that class they would get stuck on lesson 8, and someone in lesson 6 would kind of skip ahead because they finally understood, and so in a traditional setting it just kind of wasn't didn't seem possible to do that, but that seems sort of like the ideal. Turns out that there's an organization called the Modern Classrooms Project that tries to do exactly that. And so my goal here is to kind of introduce those concepts to you and show you how I feel like I'm trying to get to that ideal, to letting students take control of their learning, to let them spend time on the lessons that are a little more difficult for them, and to hold their feet to the fire, to require that they demonstrate proficiency in a lesson before we move on, and hopefully still manage the workload. So some folks they'll get through some of the material at the end of the course, and some folks get through more. But at the end, everyone will be proficient in the things that they're familiar with. So let me share with you this concept. So the modern classrooms, is trying to tackle this problem. They've got 3 basic pillars: blended instruction, self-paced structure, and mastery-based grading. The idea is that the actual lecture content in the material is recorded like it is now and available to the students 24/7 whenever they want to watch it. They'll sort of progress themselves through each video lecture, and on their own time, attempt problems and demonstrate their mastery to the instructor. Those demonstrations of mastery, the students are allowed multiple attempts to get that right if they need it. And it's once they've done that they're allowed to sort of move on to the next lesson. And so here's kind of what this looks like in this course. So we've got a course website where basically 100% of the course material is available online. If you go to sites.google.com/view/ee375-computer-architecture, which you clearly already are because you're watching this video, you'll get to this course website, and you'll see a little intro message from me on that home page. And on the left-hand side, or if you're on mobile, I think it's somewhere else, each of the units that we're going to go through in this class. And so I'll jump to, for instance, Unit 2 here. As you're progressing through this class, each unit you'll see have some objectives for those units. I got some links up here at the top to access the YouTube videos or the blank note sheets or the must-do exercises for the entire unit, or you can just sort of skip down here and you can see kind of a graphical breakdown of each of the lessons in this unit, and the rest of the page is devoted to presenting to you the course material in this unit. Each lesson has some objectives. There's a video you can see here and a note sheet you can use to follow along with the lecture. I might have some video notes and some additional resources for a given lesson. And then at the very bottom are the exercises you're going to use to practice the things you are learning in this lesson. One of the key things about modern classrooms is that, to allow students time to master each lesson, there's some material that is required and some that isn't. So in this course, if you see kind of a lesson in red, that's going to be what's called a must-do lesson. That's sort of a required lesson in order to say you have proficiency in this course. If you see a lesson in orange, that's sort of like one step higher. We call those should-do lessons. That's like these are lessons that are really you should consider doing. You should really try to do it. The should-do lessons, because they definitely amplify the required lessons, and they provide a much clearer picture on kind of the course as a whole. And then we have a third group here in green, which are the aspire to do lessons. This is if you are really digging a topic, or you felt like you kind of flew through the must do and the should do lessons, and you want to go a little deeper, then you can jump into these aspire to do lessons and go a little deeper into a topic. Okay, I've got a little flow chart here to kind of show you how this should typically work for you in the course. So this is kind of like, you can kind of consider this to be kind of like your recipe for each lesson in the course. And in following with the sort of must-do, should-do lessons, I've got, the boxes here in my flow chart I got really just two things you have to do, and a whole bunch that I'm going to encourage you to do to make sure you're proficient in a course. And so really the only things you have to do for each lesson are to go to the must-do exercise, fill this out, and so we'll pull it up here. A couple exercises based on each lesson. Down at the bottom is a reviewed by section. So what I really want you to do is, once you finish this, have one of your fellow students, check it. Just check your work. Make sure it makes sense. And they'll put their name down here. Once you've done that exercise, you'll show it to me. I'll hand you the mastery check for that lesson. And if you turn that back in and you get full credit, you move on to the next lesson. And so hopefully this is not super onerous, but there's lots of other things you can do that I really encourage you to do to make sure you're proficient in a lesson. I might only recommend sort of attempting just the requirements if you are like super pressed for time, or if you feel like really comfortable with the material from a previous course. In reality, what hopefully you're doing is you're starting this lesson, you're reading the objectives, because that's going to tell you what I expect you to know at the end of this lesson here. You should be able to do these things. That'll kind of inform your understanding of what notes you take. I would encourage you to watch the video, because I'm going to present to you the information you need to know in that video. I would really encourage you to do it with other students. Have a little watch party, so that as little questions come up, like, oh, I thought he said, or wait, how does that make sense with? You got friends around you that can go, oh, you forgot that, or yeah, I'm confused about that too. Let's talk about that for a minute. Definitely take notes as you're going along, or at least afterwards, to sort of help your brain digest the information. So I'm going to provide you with the lecture notes I'm using, minus some of the words, to encourage you to kind of put those in and add your own annotations and stuff. Take those notes while you're doing that. And I'm going to really encourage you to read the pertinent sections of the textbook. So this lesson here, or really every lesson under additional resources, is going to list the portion of the textbook, or kind of the material where I'm drawing this from. In some cases, I'm not even going to really go too much in depth, because the textbooks do a really good job of explaining something. At a minimum, I would really encourage you to take the time to read the textbook, because it's going to provide two really good pieces of information to you about that section. You've got not just the author's kind of viewpoint, but also sort of my video that kind of helps summarize and explain things. Once you do that, then attempt the exercise. And I got a tip here. If it's making sense, then you can sort of potentially move on to the mastery check. But if you take a look at, if you finish the lesson, you get your notes, you're looking at this must-do exercise, and it's kind of not making sense, then I would encourage you, number one, to, at least for the lessons that are coming from the Introduction to Computing Systems, take a look at the odd-numbered problems. Those problems have solutions on the course website, and a little later you'll see a link to that. And definitely do that with other students. but at least the odd number problems will sort of give you a little check on learning. You can kind of try some easier problems, see the solution, check with other students to see if they can help explain why that solution is correct, and that'll hopefully start to kind of answer or help you start to figure out how to work through these problems to get to the correct solution. When we're in class, I absolutely want you to seek me out for help, but I want us to learn how to leverage our classmates, to lean on them for support. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is abide by this rule: ask Larry before me. If you come to me for help, one of my first questions to you, if I'm doing the right thing, is gonna be who did you ask for help prior to me? What did they tell you? And hopefully, if you make it a habit of seeking assistance from at least 3 students, you'll find that you're not necessarily waiting on me to give you an answer, that you can kind of work through stuff, and you get some resources, some other classmates that you can go to for help if things aren't making sense. Additionally, if you complete the must-do exercise and you want to keep going, either you are really interested in a topic and you want to kind of keep practicing it, or you only kind of feel marginally comfortable with these questions, I'm going to encourage you to check out these additional exercises. And a lot of those are going to be questions that come out of the textbook. So additional problems out of the textbook, or questions that I've come up with to help you really solidify your understanding of the lesson. And again, I would encourage you to do those even if the must-do exercise makes sense. If it only kind of makes sense, then definitely do the exercises, because when you get that mastery check, it's not going to be a copy of what's on the exercise sheet. It's going to be something else about that lesson to test your understanding. And if the 2 questions you've seen so far, or you only kind of barely grasp, then that's an indicator that you need to spend a little more time with that lesson. And then after you've done the mastery check, if you got that check correct, like I mentioned, you'll just go on to the next lesson. But if not, I want to give you the opportunity to go back and figure out what you did wrong. So I'm going to hand that mastery check back to you, and you're going to correct your mistake. And before you test again, you'll bring that back to me. You'll explain what you did wrong, and I'll give you a different mastery check to kind of test your understanding. You can still seek help from other students while you're doing that, but I would ask strongly that you make sure the other student you're seeking help from has completed that mastery check already. I've got a limited number of mastery checks, and if one of those accidentally kind of spills out to a student who hasn't seen it yet, then I'm not really testing their understanding if they've already seen the question. But that's kind of your flow chart through this class, right? You're going to start at Unit 0, and you'll find in there the lesson, and you'll work through this flow chart. Your goal being to feel comfortable with the must-do exercises so that you can pass the mastery check when you come to me to do that in class. And so, one question in terms of this model is, okay, what does class look like? Well, you can kind of see a picture here of 2 students working together. This class, like I said, is very collaborative. So when you show up to class, by and large, it's going to feel like kind of like a study hour. You're going to show up, and based on you're going to find other students that are at your same, sort of working on the same lesson. And you're going to sit down as a group, and you're going to either watch the video or you're going to work through the must-do exercise together, and you're going to help teach each other this material. Additionally, we might do some sort of unit reviews in class, or if we're behind a little bit, I might give us an extra lab session. There'll be different things that I might incorporate as sort of group activities to make use of that time. But honestly, you can mostly think of this course sort of like an online course, like you might find on Coursera or Udacity. It's like everyone in EE375 is doing an online course. And it's just required that we meet, a couple times a week as a group to ask each other questions and work through the material. And you get, time with the instructor to ask any specific questions and to do those mastery checks in class. All right. Hopefully at this point you are excited for this course. Hopefully you understand kind of the flow, and you know how to navigate this website. What you can do next is, if you'd like, view a couple more videos under the should do side that kind of help explain and rationalize this format. And if not, you can go ahead and jump into the Unit 0 content. I got some objectives here and 2 lessons, course overview and something on the course administration to teach you before we jump into Unit 1. All right, good luck, folks. That's all I got. I'll see you next time.